the session today. Uh, Today we have Dr. Srinivas Chiramuri as our guest. Dr. Srinivas calls himself a learning doctor focused on coaching business leaders and teams to deliver outcomes for not just for community and customers, but also for businesses together. So he has over 25 years of work experience, which includes roles like editing and publishing operations, space selling, faculty and leadership development. He is an active blogger. He enjoys reading, and also he loves to sing, basically. So welcome on board, CH. Thank you very much for accepting the invite and coming over.
Thanks calling me over for this, Aditya. We are a mutual fan club, so
Thank you, CH. So, would you please walk us through with your career journey?
okay. So qualified to be an English teacher. Um, did some bits of it, parts here and there in institutes and Open University. Then um, actually worked for an organization to launch their magazine. Did the editing part of it, the operations portion of publishing magazines and putting it on the stands, doing some space selling, did some faculty development and academic administration, and then about 20 odd years in leadership development and skill development. Passion, I think, all through has been coaching.
Hmm. It's a lot of different diverse roles that you have played.
Correct. Correct.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. So, uh, you coach business leaders,
Mhm.
and what I want to understand from you is, can you talk about one of the most challenging assignments that you have had, and what is it that made that particular assignment very challenging, and what are your learnings from it?
Sure. Um, I will talk two probably.
Okay.
Two for very specific reason. One was a very highly self-aware leader who acknowledges the need for development, uh, yet uh, justifies his or her stance, um, given other people's behaviors. Now that leader has been a difficult one. I'll come back to talk about what is the difficulty. Is it truly difficult or not?
Okay.
Okay. The second one was a leader who sought coaching, does reflections very well, yet struggles to prioritize and keeps postponing the coaching events. Um, for me to continue with him or her on their development journey was a difficulty, right? Now, what has been the learning for me? The when I reflect on it, there are two things that happen. One is there is an interpersonal challenge, there is an intrapersonal challenge. What do I mean by intrapersonal? It's all about, the first one is about me. It's my thinking, my belief systems, my uh, thought process that interferes or hinders with my ability to ask probably sometimes the most difficult questions, or the challenging questions, if you may call. And in one of the books I remember reading, they say incisive questioning. I think while my questions are sharp, I sometimes struggle to hold them accountable. I remember one of my coaches once said, "CH, you are a nurturing coach. Your tone, your conversation, everything is very nurturing in nature. You struggle to get to the point with the talent. You don't question them as to why the hell are you not doing? Why don't you hold them by the scuff and make them sit?" So that was a challenge for me. That's why I call it intrapersonal. Um, in the second, I think in both these cases, when I think about, I think coaching is not their priority. They came for coaching. They wanted to improve, but because the life continues despite those challenges, they were not taking the coaching agenda seriously.
Yes, yes. Mm.
Uh, that's how I look at it. I don't know if you want to probe anything more on it, but these are the two challenging scenarios.
That's a very interesting point that you have made during this, and I was noting it down as you were talking about it. Is that as coaches, our thoughts and beliefs tend to sometimes prevent us from using our skills effectively.
Correct.
So that's a very interesting perspective that you have brought in.
Sure.
I've noted it down. I want to talk more about it, but
Okay.
uh, I would like to pause and see if anybody in the audience have any questions that they want to ask. Looks like no. So how do we deal with this? With an enemy sitting within us. How do we kind of
Yeah.
manage this?
Yeah. So in this context, I also remember this book, Aditya, the Masterful. It was, I think, earlier called Masterful Coach, but later it's been made the Master Coach by by Greg Thompson. Uh, One of the most favorite lines in the whole. Of course, a lot of things are very good in that book, but what I really liked in that book is one line which says, when you are coaching somebody, your limiting beliefs cannot interfere with the aspirations and ambitions of your talent. That's what the author says. That's like an aha moment. Not that it's only then I realized, but definitely imagine there was somebody who would come to me and start talking about, hey, I'm not getting promoted. How do I get promoted? Now, imagine promotion is one of my pet peeves. I didn't get promoted. Then automatically, when the person says, my piece comes up. Oh,
Mm.
yeah. Then I launch into a conversation that is natural, right? In organizations, it happens. Then suddenly I move away from the talent whom we are coaching to get into a child to child conversation. You crib about it, I crib about it. And when both of us are cribbing about it,
Mm.
I do not think a problem can be solved. So that is where I think when they talk about transactional analysis, they talk about adult to adult, parent to parent, child to child, right? In these three ego states, adult, parent, and child ego states,
Mm.
a parent is a controlling person, while a child is a complaining person, while an adult is a mature self. When somebody comes and starts talking to me and my inadequacies start jumping up, building a self-awareness and being conscious of when do I interfere with myself. This is one of my favorite questions I always ask people and ask myself. What are the times you see yourself, you becoming a hindrance for yourself?
Mm.
Okay. I ask the same question. When I'm asking this question, am I trying to solve my problem, or am I asking this question to enable the talent to solve their problem? Because broadly, if you look at coaching is all about problem solving. Let me pause there. I don't know if I answered your question, but
You did. You did. In fact,
okay.
couple of powerful things that you've said, and this question remains with me, where you said, what are the instances when you become a hindrance to yourself? So
Yeah.
I think that's a very powerful question to ask ourselves from time to time
Yeah.
to overcome some of those limiting beliefs and those roadblocks that we might have.
Yeah. And also, I remember, to this point, uh, I always struggle to ask the most difficult question to the person saying, like, for instance, once this person came to me and said, I don't like this place. This place sucks. This is terrible. I don't want to work in this place. I was itching to ask, then why don't you go? But I couldn't ask. I was like, oh, is that right? Oh, and then I was going on. And then the person sits there and goes on cribbing. And what they say is, a coach who allows somebody to vent is good, but who only facilitates venting but doesn't bring the coach talent to problem solving is an equal guilty party to the whole problem. Because ultimately you have come to me with a purpose to solve a challenge that you are in. Okay, you have a right to say you are upset about it, but going on talking and feeling like a victim, and me joining the group and the party and saying, yeah, that's I understand, and playing an empathetic role, but not truly asking the sensible, challenging question, is no problem solver. So that is where the feedback came to me saying, you should also build your confronting muscle.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Anybody wants to have, anybody has any question, or I can go on. So this. Yes.
I just wanted to ask something. So you've spoken about what are the what is the mindset that sometimes coaches come from, and being aware of what's happening inside us. In your experience, would you say that there are certain kinds of people who are not coachable?
Sure. Of course, the theory, the way they talk about, and also, in fact, a couple of times after I built the muscle, I actually told people, hey, I remember I'll come back to this again, but somebody did not do some work on what I asked them to do. We agreed that we will do, and then didn't come back to me for a few weeks, and then came back suddenly one day, and then sat down, started talking, and the person was feeling very uncomfortable because he or she did not do the work, and came to me almost after 3 weeks. Then I was listening to it. I was not saying anything. And this person was waiting to see if I will ask, what did you do about it? So then can launch into, and I was not asking. By then, I was a slightly improved coach, I can say. In my older times, I would have jumped up and said, but last time you said you will come, why didn't you come? Then suddenly that becomes my agenda. So I said, honestly, 1 to 10. How important is this coaching for you? Put it on a scale. And this person said 6. I said, then come to me when it becomes 9 or 10. That means when it is not your priority, I'm not going to coach you. And when, of course, the other easiest answer I could have given is, yeah, there are people whom we don't choose to coach when particularly their basic skill sets are missing. Because coaching is always moving somebody from level 1 to level 2, and level 1 assumes that they have basic skill sets. But if they don't have that, and if they don't have the attitude to change it, so in the first case that I talked about, I don't go to the person. I don't even ask the person. And even when the person comes to me, I get to a band and then sidetrack the conversation, but I don't get into coaching conversation because I know this person is not interested. And in fact, at one point in time after building relationship, I said, anyway, I know you're not interested in changing yourself. Why do we have this conversation? If you are serious about improving yourself, it makes good sense. Go and talk to somebody else, because now that you become such a good friend, probably I can't even coach you because you are not coach worthy right now. I don't know if I answered, but that's how I.
You did. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, CS. This is Ashutosh. Can I ask something?
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, you gave this example of somebody coming to you with a problem, and then the temptation that you start explaining, or if you've gone through the similar situation.
Right.
you start, saying that, oh, yeah, even I've seen this kind of thing,
Right,
or I faced
right.
similar problem.
Right.
So what I can relate to this, because few people that I have, even though I'm not a trained coach, but I've like coached few people, especially my juniors or my immediate colleagues. So sometimes I have done this, but I saw this more as a rapport building tool, because when somebody comes to you, and if you just very briefly try to empathize with them and tell them that yes, you are kind of familiar with this kind of situation, and this is a common situation. So can this be seen as a kind of a very initial rapport building exercise kind of thing, and you, rather than you, obviously you don't delve too much into it and don't make the whole conversation about your experience, because then it will take you away from the subject
Yeah,
or the coachee.
sure.
So what is your view on that?
Okay. To give a brief answer, yes, we can do that. And then to your point, briefly and without delving deep into it, those are all very subjective. When do you stop? I don't know. How much do you share? I don't know. But as rapport building is fine. And rapport building is not so much about telling our war stories to them, but it's about your passion. It's about for them to get to know who you are. And sometimes I might not have the situation that somebody has gone through, but still I can empathize with somebody. So empathy is not necessarily only because I went through it. The only danger I see uh, in sharing the challenges that you went through, while vulnerability I appreciate, the challenge is, if you are not aware, you might get into a venting mode. Uh, if that is not happening, that's okay. I'll keep my answer there.
Sure.
Did,
Thanks a
did I
lot.
answer or did I confuse that?
No, that's fine. Perfectly fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
So, CH, one question that I have is, transformation is one of the key. I mean, whenever I look at your career graph and the various things that you've done, transformation happens to be one of your core strengths. One of the things that you specialize in. Uh, how do you weave coaching into this entire transformation, and how do you use coaching as a tool during transformation?
Okay. In initial 30 seconds, 45 seconds, I'll try bring probably conceptual thing.
Sure.
Coaching primarily, as I already mentioned, is more about problem solving. A lot of times people don't understand coaching is problem solving. They think coaching is something for career development and all. No, coaching fundamentally is problem solving, whether it is career, whether it is promotion issues, whether it is salary issues, whether it is career navigation. Everything is a problem or a need for resolving an issue, or it's a decision making point that I'm stuck and then I need some support to make decisions. I remember, I think you already know how to be great. I think Alan Fine says something beautiful. He talks about saying coaching increases the decision velocity. That's what he talks about. The speed of decision making improves, right? That's one aspect of it. The second one, which I look at, is coaching is all about when you are solving a problem, you need to implement something. And if you want to transform, ultimately it is all about change. So coaching fundamentally gets you to do things that you are you haven't done earlier. That means you have to change the way you did things, the way you thought, etc. So whenever you say transformation, you stop being something, you start being something. But I'm using the word very carefully. Stop being means it is not impacting your authenticity. You are changing the unhelpful behaviors or hindering behaviors, and you bring new behaviors. To bring those behaviors, a lot of times people say, yeah, flexibility is important. But flexibility is not such an easy word. People like the way they say, a lot of people who have to lose weight, they know they go sign up for weight loss programs. They paid money, but they don't continue it. It doesn't become sticky. And that is where I see coaching is a powerful method of co-creating a goal, creating a vision, and building that commitment to sustain that action plan to enable transformation. That's my one. I said 45 seconds, but about a minute and a half of the framework that goes in my head when I think about transformation and coaching. Right?
Yep.
And how does coaching help here? I remember a leader who came to me and said, you know, CH, I'm working very hard. I'm struggling. I have bodily injuries, but I can't give myself permission to not exercise. I work out 7 days a week. I'm like, okay, you seem to know it. Then why don't you stop doing it? He said, no, I cannot. Then in the conversation, I was digging deeper to look at what are some old tapes this person plays, the tapes we play, right? And we both were chatting. I was asking questions. I was digging deeper. At one place, he said, can you give me an example? So that is where I gave an example of somebody whom I was coaching had a childhood event that caused this person to get stuck. After listening to this event, this person said, I think CH, I got my tape. I said, tell me your tape. This person said, at my home, I'm the youngest of the siblings, 2 siblings. Difference is 10 years. All my cousins were about 8, 9, 10 years older than me. And when all of them come home and we are sitting, I go sit there, all these elderly ones, they are all 18, 19, 20. I am 8 and 9. Now they use me almost like Chotu. You know, you are the younger one at home. You know, hey, go get some water. Ask mom to make some tea. And every time this young one comes back to sit down, these elder ones shoo him out of the room. While walking, this kid is not walking silently, is thinking, I want to sit there at the table. But these big ones are not allowing me to sit there. So while walking between this room and kitchen, is thinking, how do I gain acceptance of these big ones? And wrote a story or a tape saying, my family loves me if I do big things. That's a tape. Now he started applying it everywhere. And the person went on to do big universities, big institutes, top grades, then transfer it to organization, join big companies. Now, where does this person want a seat? He wants she wants the seat at the table with biggies. And when you sit there with biggies, you get big problems. When you get big problems sometimes need big time. And this person wants to prove himself or herself, so keeps taking multiple things. He's juggling multiple balls. Now has to do big things. To do all of this has to stay fit. So exercises more. Can't give himself permission because you can't fall ill. And in this whole conversation, finally, the person rewrote the frame saying, actually, my family never told this to me, that we love you only if you achieve. It was me who created this story. So said, now I have to change this story. I said, how will you change it? So this person said, my family loves me in spite of my successes or failures.
Wow.
You won't believe 6 months later or 1.5 years later, he kept in touch with me, told me, but one day he called and told, I figured out that this is not what I want to do. I started my own venture. Now I'm my own boss. I can relax when I want. I have no pressures of what others will think. So I made this choice. I thought I should let you know. So this is how coaching can help some transformation. because this is helping them find out their limiting beliefs. You know, this you remember the coaching, the counseling course you and I did, Aditya,
Yeah.
where they talk about unfinished agenda,
True.
right? And then they talk about coping mechanisms.
Yep.
A coping mechanism is good to solve a problem, but it is a coping mechanism for that situation in that context. But a lot of times what we do is we generalize the coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
And in the process, what happens is it ends up becoming a stereotyped, pre-programmed response to any problem because it's a success pattern. You know, whenever people say, can you share some best practices? I always wonder, will my best practice be your practice? I don't know, right? So it is a practice for me in that situation, and my own practice might not work for me in a different situation because the people or the problem that I'm dealing with at the next time is a different situation.
Yeah.
So I think this pre-programmed approach of a success formula to be used everywhere doesn't work very well. That is where coaching will help you break the patterns, mindsets, challenge the thinking, and enables transformation.
That's very powerful. Quite a few takeaways. In fact, I quite like the way you have linked the coping mechanisms, because it's pretty natural for us that once it works, we tend to embrace it and start repeating it over and over, and it tends
Yeah.
to become a habit. And when it
Yeah.
becomes a habit, it becomes very difficult for us to break the pattern.
Yeah.
And it starts working against us as opposed to for us.
Right.
Very powerful, CH.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let me just take a pause and see if anybody has any questions. Okay. So what I would just like to do for a moment is I want to share the guest that we are going to have next week. So the guest that we are having next week is a gentleman by named Cherian Kurvela. Let me know you're able to see it. Okay. So Cherian is currently a coach and a business mentor for over a decade. In addition to this decade, he has about 30 plus years of experience in large organizations like Xerox, Airtel, and Reliance. So he's agreed to be our guest next week. He's going to talk certain aspects around how do you price your products in terms of if you're a coach, how do you price your coaching? I mean, products that you're going to do, and aspects around how do you kind of build your personal brand, how do you look at your niche, and all those things. So those of you who are here, feel free to join us next week. The same link, or stay in touch with me. I will share you the links. All right. Sorry for the small digression. We'll come back. We'll come back now. Are you able to? All right. So, CH, one more question that I wanted to ask you is, what are the common challenges that you have seen a lot of the leaders that you were coaching face, and what is their awareness level of these challenges?
In most of the cases, if I have to broad brush it, a lot of times they know it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It's not something which they don't know.
Okay.
Like when I think Ashutosh talked about it, I was thinking about one of the colleagues many years ago once came to speak to me. Both you and King Shuk would know that colleague. Came to me, was speaking, and then said, I have this challenge. My mother-in-law is unwell, this, that. I listened to it. And then, at one point in time, I launched in to tell my war story and then talked about it. And after 45 minutes or so, I paused and then I said, I hope this was helpful. That was like an aha moment in my life. it was like almost a slap on my face. This person said, you know, CH, actually, when I came to you, I didn't expect you to tell anything to me. I just wanted you to listen to me.
Hmm.
That was like a big moment for me, saying, why did I talk so much? So that is where my statement is coming. A lot of times, probably people don't need advice. What they are looking at is revalidation of what they already have known, and they are stuck in making a decision that unknotting has to happen.
Hmm.
So that is one of the things. Few of the people who came to me, like I remember one guy came to me for coaching and sat down, and I was told he needs to be coached on communication. And this person I asked, so tell me, what do you think is your challenge? And in his narration of the story, never came communication.
Hmm.
But his manager and others wanted him to be coached on communication.
Wow.
So then this person said, my manager wants me to improve in communication. I said, your manager wants you to improve means you don't believe. That's what I'm reading. Am I right? This person said, actually, I do good communication. I said, so tell me what is going wrong.
Hmm.
In the whole process, I said, let us put your manager aside. How I will answer to your manager is a part.
Hmm.
What would you like to get out of this? This person says, I want to get promoted. I said, I don't know if I can get you promoted, but I can only help you identify your areas that you want to work on to become promotion worthy. You should be demonstrating the behaviors, whether promotion happens or not, I don't know. At the end of it, in this whole piece, communication came up.
Hmm.
That means you are not able to communicate to them that you are ready. What are you thinking communication? What are some of the challenges? In all of this, a lot of times, sometimes they are aware, but sometimes they are not conscious of under which circumstances it is not working. So that's where my second word comes, consciousness.
Hmm.
The third one is there is a lack of intentionality. That is where we know we need to lose weight, but we do nothing about it. Or we buy equipment, but the equipment rusts in the corner of the house. That's where intentionality becomes important. So some of the challenges, if you ask me, it is all about two scenarios that I talked about in the beginning. Somebody came to me, asked for coaching, does some work, but still doesn't do. In all of this, it tells that they don't immediately feel the need, and they are not bought into the need for coaching told by somebody.
Hmm.
That's one challenge. And some of the senior guys, while I say senior guys, the roles are bigger. They are not necessarily senior for me in terms of behavior.
Hmm.
They struggle to prioritize their development over business urgency.
Hmm.
They keep sacrificing their development, believing that they can run fast and then complete that and come back. But this is where I remember very fondly, but on a lighter thing, Stephen Covey's statement. He says, how many times have you been in such urgency, going so fast, and had no time to fill fuel?
Hmm.
How can you drive fast, go fast somewhere without refilling your tank? Without sharpening your saw, how can you become better?
Yeah.
So the biggest challenge is prioritization.
Hmm.
Third one I talked about is limiting beliefs.
Okay. Great. So
Is that what you were looking at? Something else you wanted me to?
no, 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 no. I'm not looking. I was not looking at anything. So the typical challenges that you have come across in great leaders are they not being bought into the whole idea of they getting coached.
Right.
That's one. The second is I probably put it as sacrificing self over business needs,
Right.
where they deprioritize their own
Right.
development areas and
Right.
focus on the business needs. And the
Right.
third one is the limiting beliefs that we had a conversation.
Right. Right. Completely with you. And I was just thinking about this, even in my case, as I told you, my confrontational muscle was not there. I wouldn't say I want to keep people happy. Initially, I used to think people have to be happy. Then I figured out it is not about keeping them happy. It is about being fair to them. I remember one of my managers told me, do you want to be a good guy or do you want to be a fair guy? You need to figure that out. Good guy is not necessarily a nice guy. And, a nice guy image is nice doormat. I can walk all over it. It's not cushy stuff. Sometimes you have to be comfortable to hold that mirror. And then even if it is an ugly image, that's okay. Make them feel comfortable to be with themselves in their skin, who they are. A lot of times I've seen, I had somebody who came to me, had facial palsy, said, I don't like myself. Now, this is a low self-regard, right?
Yeah.
Now, when self-regard is low, how do we enable transformation? Because as we talked about change needs energy.
Yeah.
When you need energy, you need to get energy from positive strokes. You don't get from negative strokes. Already, I feel I'm not good. I don't look good. I'm not handsome. So then I had to ask, saying, okay, let us accept for a minute that you are not handsome. In your role, how much does your physical appearance have an impact on the work that you do? Is a software engineering manager, whatever, or architect, what they call, I don't remember now. It was many, many years ago. He said, no, I need to code. How much does your physical appearance interfere with your coaching capability? Where all does it interfere? He said, nothing much. And all the promotions that you got in your life were because of list 10 things for me. And then I showed the list and I said, show where your physical appearance was there in this. At least I'm curious to see you didn't say that. Then I said, if your physical appearance did not contribute to any of this, then why do you think it will hinder your growth? So a lot of times it's a tape. Some event that didn't go well causes some pushes you back. And then people start living the past and thinking that, this will impact everything in my life. Many, many years ago, we used to run one program in one of the businesses. And there I remember they talk about developing an edge, and they talk about 3 Ps, which is it's every time when you fall down, you have to ask, you have to tell yourself it's not permanent, it's not pervasive, it's not personal. It's not permanent, it's not personal, it's not pervasive. It's not permanent means it's not going to stay forever. It's not personal means it's not only me, there are many others who go through. It's not pervasive. That means I failed in this. The tape people face, if I failed here means I am useless everywhere. Now they make it pervasive. Now that's what this person was playing. And I had to show him other areas where this fallacy had not affected his life at all. He's playing, the shadows of the problem were more dangerous and monstrous than the reality.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So the 3 Ps are a good way to look at any failure, basically.
Yeah.
The permanency of it, the being personal, and then pervasiveness of that.
Yeah. The only thing is it's not permanent. It's not personal. It's not pervasive.
Pervasive. Correct. Good. Audience, any questions? Because I have tons of them, so I can keep going on.
And while they are thinking, if I'm giving too much of details, you can stop me.
I'm liking it. So if they feel that too much of details, they can always.
I
Ashutosh,
think more detail is better because we are here to listen to you. So the more you speak, the better for us.
Okay.
CH, when will you start your own coaching journey?
I'll come to you. I'll come to you for help. I've still put my, like the way I told you, right? I've done the investment. I've not given the exam. But my own coaching, no, if you meant practice and charging for it, it will take a few more years. You know the truth. But pro bono coaching business leaders, even outside my company, anywhere, I still do that. And in fact, anywhere I go, I tell people, if you want me to coach you, just sign up. I'll just give you time. I do a fair amount of work in the late evenings, coaching leaders and all. But thanks for asking that, Kingshok. I know we go a long way in thinking about coaching.
Thank you, CH.
So, CH, one question that I had for you is, it's always important. I mean, I'm sure all the coaches know the importance of upskilling themselves. Okay. From your standpoint, how do you go about that?
Okay. So one of the places many years ago I learned, I touched upon it briefly. Um, my one of my mentors, not a coach, a mentor told me, CH, you decide whether you want to be assertive or not. That's okay. But if you don't become assertive, ask yourself what is the price you are going to pay for it. And then he didn't stop there. He said something very significant in my life. He said, sometimes the price could be your self-respect. Till then, ever in my life, I never thought not being assertive can have an impact on my self-respect. So once I became aware of it, there was a leader who also gave me some space and told me you have to be assertive. So I started consciously practicing no. And of course, over a period of time, I learned it's not about saying no, it's about knowing when to say yes. And then I refined it saying, am I saying yes or no to a person, or am I saying yes or no to the idea of a person? The moment I delinked the person and the no and yes, it became easier. So then now I think pre 2008, if anybody you met would tell CH is a very nice kind of guy, goody, wants to please people kind of. But now, if you actually ask people about 14 years, I think I've consciously worked on my brand image of he's a guy who can put his foot down. He will tell, but he will gracefully say no to you. So that's one muscle I built. The second one is I told you about confrontational skills. I remember I was coaching a senior business leadership, and they were and I'm talking at this one of the businesses, and it was the senior most guys, the chairman kind of guys. And they were talking some problem, and the chairman's one downs were telling, oh, this is a big problem, we've been going through it, we've been doing non-value added work. I was listening to it. At one point in time, I stopped and said, don't get me wrong with this question, but I'm trying to understand. You are the people who bite the bullet, right? With you, the buck stops. You are the topmost leadership. Yes, we are the ones. I said, and you people have been doing non-value added work for 6 months. And you did not have the spinal cord to tell your chairman what you are doing is non-value add. And you needed this meeting to come and talk. And what kind of culture are you building in your organization? Think about it. So that's how that day while I was saying it, I was telling myself, CH, don't do that. Don't do that, because one fellow decides to write a mail to my boss, my job is gone. But it was itching inside me. And I remembered this. I always was practicing, but I said, no, this is the acid test now. So I had awareness, I had consciousness, and I intentionally practiced it. And at one point, after I delivered that, I was like calm and I was looking at, there was pin drop silence in the room. Everybody was. Later, one of the persons called and said, I'm surprised the way you dropped the bombshell so silently. And none of them after that spoke about the non-valued work. In fact, they went back to say, what will we do to raise non-value added issues upfront? Okay, that is one. Obviously, I connect with leaders like you and King Shuk and others whom I interact with. There are good friends. I use a lot of my time to be vulnerable and open up and say, hey, I'm not good at this. There are some colleagues with whom I would have shed tears. I'm absolutely vulnerable. I am very comfortable to say I'm incapable. That's okay. I want to learn this. And I've actually set up time with some of the younger people to learn some stuff from them. This I learned from one of the leaders. So I have a weekly catch up with somebody to listen to that person. I will ask questions and this person will give me answers and knowledge about his or her subject. That's how I have a practice. I did this for almost 6 months. And then, of course, reading books, little bit of here, there. Reflection is a big deal. You talked about my blogs. This is a goal I have had about a year and a half now. Any blog that I write, I'm not talking about anybody else's, this one. My blogs, I told myself, cannot copy anything from anybody else's. No concept picked from anywhere. So develop a unique metaphor and link personal development. In this process of reflection, you start realizing and you start strengthening your muscles. That's my 2 bits.
That's a very practical way of developing and upskilling oneself, because you've talked about different aspects. If I were to look at it, one, you were speaking about not just acquiring the skill when it comes to the assertiveness you were talking about, but then even practicing it, because a lot of times we acquire it and then stop short of practicing it because we're scared of something. So that's one important thing that you've talked about. The other thing that you've talked about is in terms of being vulnerable, because that not only builds trust, but that also opens you up for newer things, basically.
Yes.
That's a great thing. And the third one, which stuck with me, is the fact that you worked so much with youngsters, trying to learn from them, because a lot of times people think that these guys know nothing, they're entitled, they're millennials and all these things. But their perspectives, there's a lot to learn from that. And that's a fantastic thing that you've done in terms of working with them and then learning from them. Great.
Sure.
Great.
Thanks.
We're just about 3 minutes short. Anybody has any questions?
No, Aditya, but I have a hard stop at 5. I'm sorry, CH. I'll have to sign in to another ID.
No problem.
No problem.
We will also stop at 5.
Yeah.
Okay. A minute to 5. I'll log out.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. And this is fantastic, CH. Thank you.
Oh, pleasure.
Yeah, this is Ashutosh. Similar good feedback from my side as well. Very nice listening to you and your experiences. And I'm sure this will definitely help us in, charting out our own coaching journey.
Good luck to you, Ashutosh.
Thanks, CH, and thanks, Aditya, for taking this initiative and organizing this. I have listened to the previous sessions recording also and found it quite useful.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ashutosh. Thank you. So any tips for coaches that you would like to give? Anything that
Okay, now as I told you, best practices and tips, somehow I don't, whenever somebody gives a tip, it is a tip from their side because they would have practiced.
yeah.
But one is invest time to reflect, look within,
Hmm.
then you look without,
Hmm.
right? So in first, as a coach, like your first question, challenges, I tried explaining challenges, but if you actually ask me, a talent is never a challenge.
Hmm.
It's me who is a challenge because I am not able to do something.
Hmm.
A lot of times I've seen people tell, oh, he's not coach worthy. No, I always ask, what have you to do to improve, to coach somebody better, right? How do you make yourself worthy of being accepted as a coach, right? So from that standpoint, building self-awareness is very, very important. Becoming conscious of it and then intentionally practicing. So these are the three words I always use. I am aware of it, I'm conscious of it, I'm intentional about it. That means I'm going to go practice. Anytime when I do some work with somebody, I always ask them saying, have you done something about it? Then they say, yeah, it was a very nice session. I tell them, hey, I'm not talking about how good the session was. What have you done about it?
Hmm.
Then, of course, in this whole process, take the me out of the whole situation. In the whole coaching conversation, it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about the other person. And I coach not because I'm a good coach, but I am able to coach well because the other person is willing to listen to it. Like from a chemistry standpoint, it is less of an ionic bond. I don't give anything. It's a covalent bond, it's a give and take. In this whole piece, I think one of the things that as a coach, one needs to remember is coaching is less about me and more about others.
Hmm.
Less about my capability, more about their others' capabilities. It has less to do with how good a coach I am versus how good a questioning and curious individual I am to listen to without bias. That is where to take your unfinished agenda out and then listen to people as they are. And in this whole process, I think that same book, I'll end it with that. They say, understand the difference between like and love. You don't have to like the person, but you have to love the talent. That's what the book says. The master coach says. There was this one guy, 15 seconds example, came to me, asked for coaching. I was pushing him hard. After 3 weeks of coaching, comes back to me. I said, how is coaching going? This person says, no, everything is fine, but you have not given me feedback. I said, I don't need to give you feedback.
Hmm.
No, you have to tell me, what do you think about me? What do you think about me? I said, what I think about you doesn't matter. What do you think? At one point in time, pushed me so hard, I had to pause and give feedback. I said, very honestly, I don't like people who complain about others. In the last few weeks, you never spoke positive about others. You never told anything good about any of your leaders. You want to work and grow above them, but you don't want to be a nice human, first of all. And people like you, I don't like. This fellow shut shut. And he said, is this what you've been thinking about me all these 3 weeks? I said, absolutely. He said, but I never felt it. I said, that's how I am trained. Now, that's a big piece for me. I don't have to like you, but I can coach you.
Hmm.
There are many people who come to me. They know I don't like them.
Hmm.
And some of them don't even know that I don't like them. But they know for a fact that even if they fought tooth and nail battles with me, they can come to me anytime.
Hmm.
That's an important thing. So like is not important. Love is important.
Hmm.
Unconditional. Love is unconditional. Liking is very judgmental.
Judgmental. True. True.
That's
All right.
about it.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much, CH. Thanks a lot to all the participants, whoever have joined, Ashutosh, Kingshuk. Some of them have have signed off because we are just 3 minutes over. Thank you very much, and see you all next week. Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye. Thanks.